open the finance committee meeting on April 12th at 6:43. So first item of business, I think we should review or approve meeting minutes. Does everybody get a chance to read these?
Yep.
So I think to be expected to go one by one.
You want the dates like this?
Do I have a motion to approve the meetings from 1:25 as written?
Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from 2/2 as written?
Why don't we keep it simple for the future notes and have Ron?
I love it when you do that.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from February 2nd.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from 2/16 as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 16th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. So what's that?
It's word here, though.
Oh, because I'm not easily. No, so I wanted to. So I wanted to make a comment about the ones for February 2nd.
Yeah. You can come back this way.
Um,
Got it.
So I think it was during highway director piece. I want to capture that the FinCom would like to see the budget information provided at time earlier. I think I made a comment that it'd be great for the FinCom to see it a week before the budget reviews are held.
Yep. Yeah, I know you making that.
Okay. With Justin.
Okay. Just jumping. For the 2/16 was all set, correct?
Also, we're on 2/2, right? So do we need to
Oh, yeah, sorry. That's very good point.
Hi, Ann. Hi, are you here? Okay, we just started the meeting. Right? And I have your water. Okay, bye. I'm sorry.
Oh, right. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from 2/2 as written and adjusted in today's meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the February 2nd, 2022 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No further discussion. Excuse me. So do I have a motion to approve the March 9th meeting minutes as written?
Okay, so just so that you
Yeah,
know, did you tell him?
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So there was a glitch in my computer and I could not get the chairman's name to not be Mike Mandalia. So I left it in there and hand wrote it to Jones, but now I have fixed it. My glitch was gone. So even though it says cross Mike Mandalia on him, right, Jones.
Mine says,
That was not on my list. That was not on my.
mine says, Jim.
I can't vote on this because I didn't attend this.
Yes. We have a motion for this.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 9th, 2022 minutes.
Second, Jack. All those in favor? Discussion? Do I have a motion to approve the 3/16 meeting minutes as written?
Make a motion to approve.
3.
I'm on 3/16, correct?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 16th, 2022 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Same. Do I have a motion to approve the March 23rd meeting minutes as written.
Make a motion to approve the March 23rd, 2022 minutes.
Second, Jack.
All those in favor? Aye. Any discussion on these minutes? Approved.
Do I have to say abstain?
Do I have approval for the March 30th meeting minutes to be approved as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the March 30th, 22 minutes.
I'll second that, Jack.
All those approved? I'm sorry.
So the only thing that's kind of missing. but-
Yeah, I was gonna. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Discussion on these, these are mine. Do I have a motion to approve the April 5th meeting minutes as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the April 5th, 2022 minutes as written.
Second. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any discussion on these? Was there anybody that wasn't here for those meetings, that meeting? I don't know if you were online or.
I wasn't
Did you have a chance to catch up on what we went over?
there. Which one notes, the one that you?
Yeah, no, not the April 5th. I don't
I
remember. it. You here for it? Was everybody, who wasn't here?
wasn't here for it.
And Norm wasn't here.
And Mike wasn't. Yeah, so Nick. So
Vote on that.
we want to pause to kind of brief them on these meetings. Yes, sir.
No,
You want to just- Okay, that's fine. All right, so,
I
All
can't.
those in favor?
Vote to him earlier,
okay, we did.
so he knows about it.
So all in favor on these?
Oh, for the meeting minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I paused, so if I had a discussion, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Just
okay.
Making sure we can pause for this.
Yeah.
So all those in favor for the April 5th meeting minutes?
Aye.
So. Thank you.
And I've posted April 26th for 7 p.m. at Town Hall.
Yes, I saw you posted that, and I'm being told, Mike is gonna hear, you guys see it explode. But, yep, I'm told that's the problem, is Kim is traveling that day, she won't be able to make it. And they've asked us to move it to the 27th. And I am only the, messenger on that. I tried to push back on that for, on my side, to keep kind of what it was, we all agreed on that meeting. And from Kim, from Laura, it was like, it's gotta be the 27th because Kim is not available, she can travel, vacation that she's on. She had given me a list of dates, where she was or wasn't available. Don't know or after, it was concerned. So we'll discuss that further when Mike gets here, because I'm sure he's gonna want to. So we'll plan to have that discussion a little later.
So I'll just leave it until you tell me. what to do.
Yeah, we'll just revisit that. 27th. One thing to bring you guys up to speed, on something I did today. I jumped in, had a meeting with Jay Byer, and we just had a conversation, just kind of educating myself about the school system and stuff like that. Things were going, getting a better education on what chapter 70 was. And like, what the school situation is as far as budget, just a kind of conversation like that. And one thing that he did say, that the Misco and Nipmuc schools are coming up to be finished with that debt in 2 years. And they are going to be looking to do capital expenditures to upgrade the school's carpet. But if he probably said that was going to be something to the tune of like $15 million. So that's something that we need to keep on our radar, and, keep in the back of our head. Those, he said, and I did not 100% understand it, but he said that he was going to come for a deferment on a levy. I don't know if you guys know better about that. But
So basically, he wants to keep the budget flat. And
Yeah.
just kind of- Basically, he would just kind of take out new debt and keep the exact.
exactly, that's the best way to explain it. exactly. So he's looking to keep the budget like it is, I think, and I don't want to speak for him because it was a little bit confusing and everything was here. But that's kind of the gist of what I got is that they're going to be looking to do some pretty significant, upgrades to like, to just every car was 25 years old. You imagine what their cleaning budget is probably right now. Not enough. So,
Say this is not an unusual tax.
no, and I mean, I'm not gonna begrudge it for wanting to look forward, look at the future and stuff like that, but it's something we just need to know about.
Yeah, I mean, they need a long-term plan, just like anything
Yeah,
else, a long-term plan, right? So-
He said that their long-term plan is coming to like the end. He definitely said that like the whole pandemic threw their long-term plan for a curve.
Yeah.
But, he's looking to be starting to put another one together.
Yeah.
So. Welcome, Mike.
How we doing?
Doing good.
Feels good to meet in person.
It does. It does. That would be a trip from Connecticut.
Traffic wasn't that county tonight.
So just to bring you up to speed, we just reviewed all the minutes and approved all those. Mike had made him change to the meeting that he was T2. He said he wanted to add in that he had asked for the budgets to be given with a little bit more time. That wasn't captured in the same. He added that in there. And that's pretty much it. And then basically for the guys that weren't here last week, what we kind of did was started a little bit talking about the budget. I asked how everybody felt about it. There really wasn't a lot of discussion on that. We were kind of looking through and working through our paperwork at the time. Chief was here, fire chief was here. So he jumped up. We had him go through the whole article. What article it was? It's Article 9. I just want to say it. It's Article 10. Yeah, Article 10. So he went all through like his article with the truck, what he was looking for. We asked a whole bunch of questions, talking about how we can utilize this truck to make a lot of smaller calls. He doesn't have a fire truck, big truck, and stuff like that. So a lot of everything he had to do made sense. I think we hit him with a bunch of good questions.
Was there any question around the total number of calls they get and based on vehicle, like so understanding kind of how many calls you're getting per vehicle?
I don't think anybody asked a particular question like that. It was more just about the practicality of the purchase, as far as it wasn't just going to be like right now they have, and this is in his description, he has like a 1982, military truck with the skid on the back of it that has the pump and all that. It's really not conducive to actually take anywhere unless there's an actual fire. And like this truck here, maybe get a lot of the load that he was going to be putting on the fire trucks and stuff like that, because he could just make calls with that. You guys remember any other more particular items in that? So.
No, I mean, he went through some of the nuances, like you can't leave the motor running because it leaks oil too fast. So
Oh, yeah,
when they
the
go
truck,
to-
yeah.
when they go to a fire, they have to shut that motor off, but they have another motor for the auxiliary pump, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. it's-
Yeah, so.
Like, let's see what all the fact that the truck doesn't have airbags. I mean, I think he might have said it didn't have seatbelts. I think that was a thing he said, clearly. I asked if there was any value in selling it or selling the skid that was on it. He kind of said, well, I'll have to go through the sale thing.
Yeah, it's gonna go through actually through the board of selectmen. Because it's excess town.
Yeah, and he said it goes to like an auction site. I don't know the name. He said it did or something like that.
Right, but the selectmen have to vote.
Sure, no, yeah, he was just saying how it goes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we did there, and then from there, since we were on articles, we jumped into. Okay, so,
But we're saying the articles on the annual town law.
yes, exactly, so that's kind of the progression of last week's meeting. So that's kind of how, I just want to make sure you guys understand where we left off. So you can see it in the meeting minutes, there was a couple articles that we held at. I think the articles have been updated since last week. So
We don't have hard copies, we just pull it up, right?
Yeah, you can pull it up out of the ATM on that spreadsheet. So, we went through articles 1 through 10. and everybody seemed to be, everybody was satisfied with all those articles. Happy worked out well, as I was here. She was able to give us a lot of the CPC values, like I have written in my spreadsheet from last week, the same numbers that have been now updated to the spreadsheet on itself. It's like 4136, I just didn't have 13 cents.
Just to touch on this, on the community preservation, we got notification that the state for the first payment, you can count on 35% that money. What the total take, what the town brought in from the 3% that
Yeah.
charge extra.
Yeah.
In our taxes,
The state brought it.
the state is going to give us 35% in the first payment coming up. Then when they finish their budgets and the rest of the money comes in throughout the year, that's when they decide on how much is the final payment. Talk about the states.
Yeah, share to them. Okay. Which one? I had actually. This one here. Here's a copy.
Yeah.
One of you guys want another hard copy of the warrants? It's the most up to date.
I got it right here.
Well, so what's on the SharePoint, it's on the paper, right?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
exactly. So in other words, I had last week's printed that I went through with the meeting we went through, and it's now been updated. A little bit, just like I said, the numbers, everything on my side seems to, match money wise. So,
The one thing that was a question was on the procedure about the salaries. So we had just said, we had approved Article 2. We had approved to recommend to the town to go for Article 2. We didn't go through the individual salaries.
that's right, that's what I have on my other piece here.
I don't know if we redo that one to go through the individual salaries, just procedurally.
I don't know.
Yes.
That's the procedure.
I guess what I'm mostly concerned with, did we as a committee vote on Article 4, all the budgets? Did we take a formal vote on all the budgets?
So, no, because tonight, well, I think we voted, I think we did vote on it, because I have that checked off, but I also have that cloud. I believe that means that because we had not done this, I believe Jack might have brought that up to our attention after, or that, I don't exactly remember personally, so I don't say. I just know it's cloud.
Protocol is, once the budget is formulated like that,
Yep,
so that's the finished product.
yes.
Then we go through line by line, just like at the town meeting.
Yep.
And we vote on each budget, then we present it to the town, which is later on tonight. Do we have the open budget hearing scheduled for tonight?
No,
That's where that's where the general public, we hold an open meeting, open hearing. And it's like a,
Mock,
right, so drive run.
It's taking kind of more formal question and answer. So should we, should we not push on the warrants right now and move the budget? And work?
Well, did you guys vote on the warrants?
We voted on many of the warrants, but not all of them. Held on, there's a couple of warrants that we held off on that I actually have some additional information on. So I don't know if you want to, what, you let me know. What was the
Well, we should probably clean up all the articles on the warrant.
Perfect.
And then,
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're procedurally backwards.
and then we know, because all we really have to do is vote on the money articles on
Understood.
the annual time.
Okay.
So whatever we have left
Yeah,
to do.
okay, so basically what happened was, from my recollection, we had articles 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I believe
16 held,
16 we held,
25.
Yes. so related to, yeah,
Skip.
I don't have.
Article 8 isn't on the.
Yeah, it isn't.
It's not, it wasn't on mine from last time.
There.
But I know 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and then I believe Article, I think it's 25, right?
16.
Yeah, so. All right, that's a town.
Oh, that's the town beach, right?
That's
So
town- yeah, I just wanted
Dan
to make sure.
showed us the information.
So 11 through 15, we held on to, we just didn't have a lot of information. So I ended up having a conversation with Kim. We understood what free cash was, we understood what stabilization was. We didn't know what the Inman Hill Road sale was. That was a piece of property. So that's what that was. That's an actual sale of a piece of property that the town held. It's not $119,050 is an actual sale. Now, Mike, you might remember this better than anybody else, but complete streets, we had no idea. That wasn't like a 5-year-old article or account that had money in it. Left over from, I believe, some sort of renovation. I think she said something about curbing in front of the town hall and so on. So that $169,304 is the value of that. So that's what that was.
What are they planning on doing?
This is all basically to move this into this campus fund. So she's basically, from my
See,
understanding.
that was one of the questions I had. Over the last 3 years, I think. Kind of recollect that we voted $100,000 or $150,000 into the campus fund.
I remember you saying that to me.
And I don't see it anywhere. I haven't had a chance to go through my previous years. Town warrants, annual town warrants to see it. I bet if we look, see that on,
That money might be sitting out there.
well, it's somewhere,
Yeah, no,
town voted it in.
yeah.
And I guess what our job is, as a finance committee, when something like that happens, we vote for, okay, $150,000 to go into the campus fund. Usually that year follows that vote. We should be getting a report on if that money's been spent, what's been going on. At the very least, it should be told to the people.
It seems like, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm mixing things up. I mean, wasn't there some kind of like mixing of that in the new police station and some of the work that needed to get done that wasn't budgeted and then?
Well, so that's what all of the articles were, right? There's one main article to approve. One of the articles is to move money for the town hall project. And then the other subsequent articles that we held on was all of the detail of all the money that needed to move to support the rest of the town hall project.
Right. And is the demo of the old station?
Yeah, so what she has here, I don't know if you saw this, I had this.
So Article 14.
I'm sorry if I.
Yeah, no problem. It's just, so
I have this, it is in that thing.
Okay.
It's the town hall campus funding. Yeah. So I think she has like 113,475.45 in it. She's allocated $50,000 to the demo, which I know that bid went out at 47, 48. So she's picking up a little bit of money there. They've allocated $30,000 to the remaining fencing that's to happen over there. $20,000 for paving, and they're left with a balance of the 13,457.45. So that's kind of where that account is.
I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, that some of that was supposed to have been captured in the money that went for the police station itself and not captured in the town hall.
So Article 14 is to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of funds from the police station building project account for town hall campus improvements, right? So that's the moving of $33,457 from the police station building project account. That's all the money left over after that was done, moving it into the town hall.
I think that account actually has more money in it though, because she's holding out money. She's holding out money for the demo, fencing and paving.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that account has more money. They have over $100,000 left in it. She's taking what I'm making the assumption that the demo, fencing and paving is part of that police station project.
It
That
was,
money is being allocated.
if I remember correctly, it was supposed to.
Yeah.
Part of the additional overage that we approved maybe last year.
Yeah,
Something like that.
and that's what she has in this article here, or this document here, that's.
Well, again, you know, that's the whole thing about sharing the meetings. We're here at a FinCom meeting, we're not getting any answers. Showing up. Else, these are quite, we're trying to remember or guess the answer when somebody should be here to explain it to us. We're finding. But that's neither here nor there now. We should try to get through this budget year. You know,
Not for sure.
make sure no mistakes are made. Go forward.
Mr. Chair, just a suggestion here. Where we did cover, at least according to the minutes, at least my recollection, Articles 1 through 7. I believe Articles 9, 10. Right?
Yep, that's what I have done.
And then Fire Chief's article, brush truck, that was 10, right?
Yep, that was 10 for 107.
And then, so to answer Mike Mandelia's question, so we did cover 1 through 7. But that's not to say that we ought not, reconsider any one of those if folks want to, reconsider them. But I do think that we already voted on 1 through 7, to at least my recollection, including the budget. But if, for example, and acceptance chapter 90 money off the top of my head as well, we went through all those items already. So I defer to members not present. Last meeting, I'm happy to go through the whole thing from soup to nuts with everybody present here. It doesn't really matter because we exhausted. I just want to put it out there.
I don't
To answer your question.
I don't disagree with you, and I don't disagree with you because the document has changed. So to me.
I almost feel like if the document's been changed, we should go through it.
Yeah, I mean, the document itself, has been changed.
And maybe if I would just suggest, it may not be a bad idea if we can, just to sort of just display dealing with here. Is that doable here?
Boy,
It is.
it is too.
And that way there, I think we just sort of walk through, we just sort of take through it.
My biggest concern is, we get on the town meeting floor, remember, the town meeting is people's meeting. So, anybody in the audience has the absolute right to get up and ask a question, especially in use of the finance committee and go through the budgets. What can we say if someone in the audience gets up and say, I'd like to know if the finance committee went, reviewed this budget line by line and voted on it. What we would say? No, we just lumped it together.
No.
No, I'm just, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying, because it's not me standing there. It's you, you're the chairman. And my job as vice chairman is to make sure that we're all prepared for any type of question that could come out of left field. And not to sound like an old man, but I've been to over 30 annual town meetings, and I know firsthand, you'll be surprised at some of the questions that come firing out of that audience. And if you're not prepared, you'll look foolish. Sure. And by no means do I want any one of us to.
No, absolutely. That's not the game.
400, 500.
So how come Kim isn't here? Because typically she's here and would be able to kind of walk through, because typically we do have questions around. Even though we've met, at this point, we've typically met with each of the town department heads, and we've asked questions. Typically, there's, to your point, there's changes, or the selectmen have made some adjustments that we don't particularly know about, and Kim's usually that person that kind of fills in the kind of gaps around the questions. So, I mean, we could go ahead and vote across all these, but I'm not sure if I have all the information but
I mean,
and if that's the case, then I'll be happy to abstain if I don't feel like I can.
No, I think your point is well taken, because it came up in the last discussion about the campus renovation here, for example. Please check my memory, John, but my memory is that we deliberately pushed that one off. We actually did one here in the specifics on that one. And I believe Chairman Tinio circulated Tinio was select board circulated some detail about that since the last meeting, right? But I specifically recall that we didn't want to vote on it pending hearing from him.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I said I collect some additional information. She kind of gave it to me the way I gave it to you guys, and that's really all she gave to me. I don't know if there's questions beyond that. We remember what Complete Streets was, and we just didn't know if Inman Hill was a sale or what that was. And from my recollection, those are the questions that were asked. I don't know.
By the way, Lonnie only distributed information about the ADA portion of the campus renewal project in his latest.
Yeah. Article 25. So again, since there's no one here to answer any questions, do you want to assume? You know what happens when you assume? Again, I'm definitely not trying to be difficult. I just want, we're gonna be a group of 7 people in front of the town meeting. And I keep saying this, we work for the people, for the taxpayer and citizens. So when they ask a question for us, we should have the due diligence to make sure we have the correct answer.
Yeah, and listen,
Not saying that.
no, and I'm not saying,
Anybody here is not that responsibility.
well, we're being told on these articles here that the money's in the account and we're transferring. We know what the purpose of the transfer is for. So I don't know what additional, I agree that some of the representatives should be here. That's not a thing. But I think Kim's gonna jump on everything. She just said 1 second. So let's see what she has to say. She can jump on. So hopefully she can jump on. So basically, aside from that article for the campus project, just take a look at this here. I think we did 17.
The other, to Mike's point about using the word assumption, right? The other assumption I would into this is when we say the raise and appropriate portion in that spreadsheet, right? The assumption we made is raising and appropriate from the funds available for the budget that we've been presented so far. So I just want to make sure that we're all aligned on what raise and appropriate means for the specific funds on the specific.
That's it.
Do we know if the capital committee weighed in on any of the capital expenditures?
We actually put that question directly to the chief. Matter of fact, I recall I asked what the capital planning committee's position was, brush truck, and I also asked the board of selectmen's position. My recollection is the chief responded as the board of selectmen. Since the article was submitted, that it had the approval of the board of selectmen. As to the capital planning committee, it had not seen capital planning committee is my recollection, and I believe he said that that's because the capital planning committee is not fully operational, fully staffed at this particular junction.
It's probably not fully staffed.
Is that my?
That's what
Please check my recollection. Is that approximately what we described?
Yeah, my recollection was that there is no capital planning committee, either not staffed or not operating.
And Norm wasn't there at the meeting because Norm was on.
Right.
Okay. I know he's mentioned in previous meetings that that committee no longer meets.
In another two, I think, had a conversation came about that. I think that's something that needs to get addressed, because if I'm not mistaken, that fund app, unbelievable, through a town bylaw, over $150,000. So the capital expenditure process doesn't have enough money.
Oh, look at who's here.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, guys.
How
Yeah,
are
just
you?
walked in the door, so your timing is spot on.
Awesome. Great. so do you guys want to hit a couple questions first, or do you guys want to just start? Yeah, we've got a couple of questions that are across a couple of different articles. Do you have
Okay.
time to just rip through our articles?
Yeah.
Or do you?
Go for it. Seriously, ask whatever you got, because you won't be able to reach me for another 12 days. So I'll be on a boat like Mike and Jean. I'll be sailing in the Caribbean, so you won't be able to find me.
You guys all agree we should just rip through the article?
Yeah, I think we should review the article, so that's.
That makes sense. I agree.
So, all right, so Article 1, to see if the town will vote that any motion or addendum to increase the monetary articles and line items as proposed by the finance committee presented to the town shall be out of order unless the motion or addendum states the source of funding as being available free cash or a line item or article that will be reduced by the same amount or act or do anything therein in relation to. Essentially. So that's, I think, Jack, you explained that that's like a boilerplate.
Yeah, that article, from my recollection, it appears as a matter of course in the annual town meeting to essentially, provide for, if someone's gonna take the town meeting floor and, for example, allocate another hypothetical $1 million to a particular budget line item, they may do that so long as they identify where it's coming from in the budget as proposed by the Board of Selectmen. That is, you can't sort of just come into the town meeting and offer a money article without having some way to pay for it out of the existing budget as.
Right, because what we're presenting is a balanced budget. So if you decide if there's something to talk about, what the park department's line item number 100 should have $50,000 more. We got to show where we're going to take it out of another line item, put it there. We just can't pull it out of the sky and say, oh, we're going to put it in. Right. Well, that's what that first article does. It shows us that.
Motion to approve Article 1.
Make a motion to approve Article 1.
Second,
Revoke all.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion?
Discussion needs to happen before we
You're right. Kind of, well, wait, don't we do a motion in a second and then we discuss it?
discussion.
Yeah. So we discussed it.
We discussed it before we made the motions.
All right. My apologies. Article 2, my copies are dark. To fix salaries and compensations of the elected officials of the town or take any action there in relation to.
Make a motion to approve Article 2.
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Can I get one point? So the amounts here will leave it blank.
So there's the FY23 salary report, which was in the SharePoint. So I have it printed out here.
Is that something we need to vote on? Kim, is that something we need to vote on individually or?
So there's the second page of the actual, one of the tabs within the budget document is the one that has the salaries. The very top chart in that document is this collection of salaries. When the motion is actually on the floor, your motion in front of you will have a copy of that chart right in the motion, and then you'll read off what they are. So you don't have it right in front of you, but I have the budget open right here as usual. So if you open up the budget spreadsheet, you'll look in there, see there's a tab that says salaries. At the very top of that is the chart that says elected officials. It says Board of Health Chairman, Board of Health Member 2, 3, Planning Board Chairman, Planning Board Member, and then a dollar amount, 225, 175. That's the chart that you are essentially approving, with the exception of town clerk and highway surveyor. Those are individual in their budgets.
Do you have those numbers, Mike?
Yep.
Do you want to go through those? now?
Sure, I'll read them off. So, Board of Health Chairman, $225, Board of Health Member 2, $175, Board of Health Member 3, $175, Planning Board Chairman, $225, Planning Board Member 2, 3, 4, and 5, $175 each. Selectman Chairman, $2,200. Selectman Member 2, 3, 4, and 5, all $2,000 apiece. Board of Assessors, Member 1, 300. Board of Assessors, Member 2, 250. Board of Assessors, Member 3, 250. Do we do moderator? Because that's elected.
Yes,
So moderator, 100. And tree warden, 3,500.
right. So the only thing I will tell you, and you may remember from previous budget meeting, is that one of the members or the assessors during their presentation had asked for their stipends to be increased. The board did not support that request based upon justification, but they do have the right as elected officials to go to the floor and ask for an increase. But they may hold this article. You may hear them do that. And then try to justify on the floor why they should receive more, and then the town would vote on it. And when they do that, if they do that, they have to have a funding source too, just so you know.
Because
Okay.
of Article 1.
Yes, exactly. So you can hold any article anywhere, any portion of the budget, but you have to have a place that you take it from. Typically, like, for instance, if the town clerk or the highway surveyor had come to me in advance and had said that they were going to ask for a raise, and wasn't supported by the board, but they could come to me and ask for potential funding sources. Most likely what you would see them look at realistically is either reserve for negotiations or FinCom reserve. You'll often see them, that's where they'll go. Has to be within the operating budget, okay? It doesn't happen that often, happens once every 5 years or so, but I think it may happen this meeting because of that, the assessor's request to increase their stipends to more.
How much was the increase? You remember?
I don't even know. I want to say it was $1,000 or something like that, but yeah.
I can go back and look for.
Yeah, when during their presentation, you can go back and look what, when Kevin gave the presentation, he said so, but.
So we have a motion.
Then we would have to, if that gets held, we would have to make a recommendation on that. Change motion. What usually happens, somebody will say hold. You pull that out, you vote on the article, then you come back and do all the polls. And then, because it's a money issue, we have to vote.
Right, so somebody said, FinCom reserve, we vote to say yes or no.
Or I would vote to say no, take it
Reserve count.
Yeah.
So we already have a motion and a second, and we're having our discussions to do with vote if there's no more discussion.
Yeah, there's no more discussion on Article 2, any additional information might get read. All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 3. To determine what sums of money the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds to pay the charges and expenditures of the town, including debt and interest to provide for a reserve fund for the ensuing fiscal year, or act to do anything in relation thereto. So Kim, we had a question on the actual definition of what raise and appropriate meant.
So raise and appropriate is actually the ability to tax. So you're raising the funds and appropriating. So you're raising them by taxing people and you're appropriating them by placing them in your operating budget. So this Article 3 is actually the article that sets the budget. It's the budget itself. So in this article, that's when we'll go through the whole budget here.
Motion to approve this article.
Yeah.
Read that article again, please.
To determine what sums of money the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds to defray the charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide for a reserve fund for the ensuing fiscal year or act to do anything in relation to it.
Well, that encompasses the working budget of every operation, correct? Is that what we used to call the old Article 4, it's now Article 3?
Yes,
I know
exactly.
it's Article 4.
Yes.
That's the article where we have to go through the book, basically, in each line item or department. We vote on, i.e. moderator, finance committee, selectmen, police.
That's probably right.
So we should hold on this then until we go through the public hearing.
Well, we should hold on until we vote on the charter. We haven't done that yet.
No, that's each budget line item, see if that, is that your reference?
Yeah.
And Kim, the final budget is the one dated, 0405?
Yeah, whatever is in there, last, the bottom line hasn't changed since we met a couple weeks ago. Whatever's in that folder is the last one. I'm looking at it right now. Sorry, I didn't even have these folders open. Should be. Budget. Yes, last one, 4/12 is the last modified date, but the bottom line is the same as approved from 4/5, okay?
I don't see 412 in there. Is it in there?
It's not, it's just the date that was modified last. So, when I went in and so the bottom line is set, the budget's not changing, but when the assessor emailed the other day about that $10,000, I just
Yeah.
moved it out of her overlay and put it in FinCom reserve. Typically, if we have something that comes in like that after the fact now, like let's say animal control for some, they're negotiating and it came in at like we saved $1,000, it goes in FinCom reserve, right? Or we needed another 1,000 to balance something out, it goes in, in that line. It comes from FinCom reserve. That's why that number is always, some odd number like 53,610. That's the catch-all for the small stuff at the end, as we get closer to town meeting.
Need is basically, we gotta know when we're voting on something, you gotta know what it is, so that if it does change, we know, nobody slips in. It gets changed after we vote, it gets changed, we don't know.
Princeton, then,
From email?
no, from Shay.
So is that the latest one right there?
Yes.
Does that match up to what?
Yeah, she printed, Amanda printed today, so yeah, it's matches. It's right, it's on the link, you see the link on it?
They're trying to get into.
Like. Even if there's a.
Kim, can you send a PDF of that to everybody, just so that we have it? Do you mind?
Yeah, doing it.
Thank you.
That's it, guys. I have to jump in a couple of minutes. I have to go pick up one of my kids. So, sorry. Just FYI, I should be able to come back after that. Let me just try to get this.
Yep, so Kim needs to leave in a few minutes, and you're anything critical of your.
Oh, yeah, Kim, if you need to leave in a few minutes, can we jump ahead just to,
Yeah, let me finish printing this thing 1 second so that you have it. There should be a PDF of it in there, but let me just make sure with the overlay change from the other day.
yes.
Is that printed up there?
Hold on.
Yeah.
It is perfect.
Why don't we make 7 hard copies so we can put notes on them? Jim,
It's in there, just don't have to find out. Okay.
I've asked Kim to email it to all of us.
I'm working on it right now. I didn't have it all the way open, so gotta
She
wait
emailed
a second.
Maybe we can print it. Copy. And you have something else.
Yeah. Could you print one to that printer from you, from where you are?
Maybe, hold on.
Copy it all?
Let me see what I can do. Let me
Cold
see, printy PDF. Well, let me, I can definitely,
basket full of chisels and stone tablets.
Upper Town Hall. No, can't. I'm not on the network. So let me just PDF it and send it, and then you guys can print it.
That's it right there. This is it. Take the slip out of it. No, well,
Yeah. it's not right. And
Have codes in, they used to lock them.
Okay. Say,
I worked on that.
all right.
Well, they're not very tough.
Kim, the other question that we had was on Article 11. I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Yep. Article
I'm sending
12.
it. Wait a second.
Yep.
I'm trying to send this to you guys.
Yes, you know.
Okay, got it. Okay, sent. Okay, that's done. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so on Article 12, the Inman Hill Road sale, that was a piece of property the town held.
Yes, so when we sold the Inman Hill Road property, the proceeds from that fund have to be reallocated to another capital project. And so we've been holding it in place for the town hall campus.
How long ago was that sale, Kim?
I want to say it was 2019, at least a year right before the pandemic.
So
what was the dollar?
$119,050.
What size piece of property?
Kim, do you know what size piece of property that was?
I don't know.
Someone in the audience asked that question. You know, they're gonna say, you guys voted on something, you don't know, have all the facts.
Well, the sale of that property actually went to town meeting a couple of years ago, and the details were at that meeting. So I'm sure they'd be in the motion from that night.
That was one of them. The next question, Kim, was Article 13. A little bit better definition on what complete streets was, or complete street.
So 2017, 2018, I'm not quite sure exactly when, but we received a grant called the Complete Streets in conjunction with money that was allocated at town meeting for town hall campus and the Complete Streets. At the end of that program, it's the same deal, has to be reallocated to a capital fund. We've been using that money as our base money as we designed this project for the campus. So when these articles actually come up about this funding, the select board will be going through the details of the articles and describing the funding sources. So you will have to recommend whether or not you approve of the funding sources for these articles. So you won't have to worry too much about the minutia of when, but just verifying that the funding does exist in those accounts.
A little bit better definition on I have one question on the town, on the police station. I'm looking at that town hall campus funding sheet.
Yep.
And the number, I guess it's been updated. Is there more money in that account now? The one I had from last week only had 13,475 or 457.40.
There's actually $113,500 available from the police station project. However, there are still 3 pieces of the project that remain unfinished that have to be bid and complete. One of those pieces was the demo of the police station, which we just bid, and that's about $50,000. So that number will come down. The chief would also like to install a fence around the lot for the cars, and he'd like to do some type of black or metal decorative fence to match with the design. So we're estimating about 30,000. And then we're guessing maybe another 20 for the paving portion that wasn't finished with the project that he may need, which we want to do in conjunction with the rest of the paving. So initially, we thought we would have about $100,000 left over from the police station project to use towards the campus, but it looks like we're not going to have that much. So that number, it's somewhere between 13 and 33 based upon the paving. But we can pick a number. I've talked to the chief about it, and he's comfortable with using either. I mean, at that point, we're really, the only difference makes in that number is how much we're using from stabilization. I mean, whether it's 317 or 350. So the numbers all combined, it's plus or minus 20,000 from that source.
Basically, if I'm not mistaken, regardless of whether you hold the money in the account now for paving or you're paving everything at the same time, correct?
Correct. And
So there's
so,
not a paving entity and then a paving entity afterwards. So it
right.
makes sense.
But we had originally, we're hoping that the demo of the police station would be either done pro bono or for a smaller amount of money, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and now it will get done very soon, actually, and it'll be finished. But that's, so we have to take a little bit more money from stabilization than we had planned.
I thought that money was budgeted as part of the project,
Which money?
the demo.
So it wasn't initially. It was always part of the cost at the end that they had always assumed that it was going to be done by volunteers, basically, without costing it out. And so obviously we had looked at that initially, and there's some liability issues around doing it that way, and so we formally bid it.
Maybe I'm wrong, and I know you do have to run, so I don't want to belabor this, but I thought that there was the original money that was budgeted for the police station.
Yep.
And then they came back and needed more because of cost overruns, or that the project was, the material costs had gone up. And as part of that, the demo was included in that. Am I mistaken?
No, so they came back with 3 add alternates that weren't included in the original. So the original bond amount was 5 million, and the additional 1.2 was actually the inclusion of the 3 add alts and then escalating costs from the delay of the project. So the demo, like I said, without getting into, without exposing us, we thought we had somebody that was going to do it for free. And so it wasn't included as part of the costs of the project. And so that's how we got here.
I thought it was included in that second ask, so I mistake. Yeah.
In my Article 17, is there the value of that is it 165 now? I don't see it updated on the.
Is that the chief, the truck?
No, that's that's to see if the town will vote to set the limits of the revolving funds in accordance with.
For the Parks Department?
No, it's across the board. It's all the revolving funds.
So the only change to that article for this year is a request from the Parks Department to increase their amount to $165,000. The rest of them are annual approvals and limits that are set. Those haven't changed. So the 165 is an increased request from Parks.
Oh, okay. So that's the individual parks line item value.
Correct.
Not the total of all the revolving
Right.
accounts.
And that certainly should be debated. If you haven't had Parks in a meeting to talk about the need for the limit, you should.
What is the reason that they did give you?
Well, the reason they gave is that they continue to need that amount of money in their account in order to support the type of programming they have and the payroll that goes along with that programming. What I would tell you is that we certainly feel on the board and have felt that there's a bit of mission creep going on, and that, you know, that it's not necessary. But to so much to the point that the Parks Department came to town meeting 3 meetings ago as a citizen's petition in order to increase their amount because they did not bring it to the select board. So there's a bit of a conflict there. So I think it's important that it be closer looked at before increasing the limit. The board isn't in support of it, but that's ultimately you guys get to make a recommendation on, you know, a financial expenditure.
We have it on Article 25. To see the town, on Article 25, Kim, I don't
Yep.
quite remember exactly why we held this, but maybe you have something to remind me. To see if the town will vote and transfer some of the money from the community preservation account to fund the renovations of the town each. Or
Okay.
act to do a renovation thereof. So there's another $180,000. So we didn't
Right.
have any information on that at all.
So, right, there's another project that came to us through an article on the warrant that we had no prior knowledge of, that I did ask for supporting documentation, and we were provided with a schematic at our last meeting of the design, but we have not seen any cost estimates related to it. There was some talk at the time about it be possibly tied to grant funding, which would be possible, and we certainly obviously are interested in beach improvements, but my personal opinion, and I think the board's too, is it's a project that's $200,000. And for the amount of scrutiny that we've certainly given the town hall project the last couple of years, I'm sure interested to see how the $200,000 improvement at the beach hasn't actually come before the select board or the finance committee as we're about to bring it to town meeting. So I'm as curious as anyone to see their presentation on the floor.
Have any of those schematics been uploaded to the SharePoint site?
I can look right now.
I haven't seen them, that's why I asked. Well, she put that to you guys. Have any other questions for Kim while we have her?
I do not see that on here. I see brush truck, I see fire department. I don't see it in here, but he did bring at our last meeting, he did do a quick presentation on the design, and it looks very nice, but I just, again, I'm always
I saw-
surprised, 11th hour.
Yeah, Kim, this is Jack.
Yep.
Kim, we did hear from Chief Kessler with respect to the brush truck, and we did actually put to him 2 questions. One, Board of Selectmen's position on that, and second, the capital planning committee's position on the article.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, and the chief responded, at least my recollection was, is that he believed that it had the support of the Board of Selectmen because it was placed on the warrant. But he didn't recall if there had been yet a formal vote on it or not as yet. But then secondly, he also explained on the capital planning committee front that he did not believe that it was before the capital planning committee because either the committee is not fully staffed or not operational. Could you provide any amplification on either one of those points?
Sure. So I got Chief Kessler's email about that. So we don't have a capital planning committee in place right now, but typically the funding source recommendation for the projects comes from the finance committee. So I think because he's also on the finance committee in Uxbridge, he might have just got a little confused about process. But typically what happens for these articles is in the past, I usually make a recommendation of the funding source and then the FinCom debate. So think about this truck as a perfect example. It's $170,000. You know, seems like it's supported by the select board to fund. Now they're asking you, where should we fund it from, right? And so you have a couple of different options. Your option is capital improvement, which you'd want to know the balance of, right, before you'd spend it. You've got free cash available. You've also got stabilization potentially. So when these articles come forward like this with these requests, what we're looking for from you is, which of these do you think is the most likely, right? Which is the best to use given our current financial circumstance? And typically I make the recommendation to you, well, these are our balances. So for something like this, for this brush truck, CapEx seems like the most logical funding location for this because it's a project that's over, over $25,000 and it fits within the criteria. And we want to use free cash for the campus, and we're going to be asking for, some money out of stabilization for the campus too. So, and it's a priority, so that's what CapEx is for. I know there was some discussion, I don't know if you guys were part of that a week or so ago, there was some discussion about why there's so little funding in CapEx. And I think I've mentioned to this board before, so there's a local bylaw, Mendon bylaw, that limits the amount that we can put in there annually to $150,000. That's why it never grows. So even though we've hit our target on stabilization, 5% of the operating budget, CapEx is abysmal still. It's $300,000, $400,000. So we need to change that in November so that we can start really funding that the way we need to when free cash comes in and putting money aside for capital. Just sorry as an aside, but came up.
Kim,
So-
thank you very much. Is there
Yeah.
a plan to reanimate the capital planning committee in some way?
So what's happened in my 8 years, this is my 9th budget, is because there's so little funding in the account, like for instance, there's $398,000 total in the capital account. And so it's it's obviously very frustrating to people in a 5-person committee when they volunteer their time to look at capital, planning capital when there isn't a lot of funding going in. So we've had different iterations of people volunteering to be on the capital planning committee. Most recently was chaired by Matt O'Brien a few years ago, and then he stepped down, and then Jay Beyer took it over, and to which he stepped down and basically said, it should be defunct because there's nothing to do. And so they had talked about making the capital planning committee basically part of the select board of the finance committee since we're doing the reviews anyway. My hope is if we actually change that bylaw and we start putting some money in there, then we'll have a real purpose for that committee to do, right? We need to do some planning and replacement. So that's the short story on capital planning.
Okay.
We've never had really a full committee, but and it's not anybody's fault that volunteered. It just, there wasn't anything to do. So
Kim, thank you for all that. So would it be, at least at this juncture, your recommendation that we hold on a committee recommendation on this pending a further discussion from you?
No, I
appropriate funding source or?
Nope, I think the FinCom is well within their authority to recommend a funding source for the brush truck if you choose to fund it. And like I said, you have a couple of different funding sources. So typically on that second page where I do says transfer analysis, it has all of your balances in there of available cash. So this year is pretty straightforward because there's not a lot of capital things on here, but and usually you won't see as many as you have. You won't see an Inman Hill on there. You won't see police station project. You won't see all these little accounts that we're transferring from to make one big account. You'll just see free cash, CapEx, stabilization, basically. And then you guys are saying, well, how should we fund it? Should we pay for this in the operating budget, or should we pay for it from capital, or is this a bigger project and we should go for stabilization? That stabilization is a 2/3 vote, so that's a big ask. That's really what the FinCom's role is with these articles.
Thank you for that.
So Kim, in the transfer analysis, in the proposed transfers, is that brush truck sitting? Is the funding for that brush truck sitting in this spreadsheet somewhere?
Yep. See that if you're on that proposed transfer, it should have pulled right over to that 195. So there's 2 things in there, right? The brush truck at 170 and the 25,000 for Inman Hill for the roof.
Do you guys have any other questions for Kim?
Did you say the capital expenditure fund is not allowed to be over 150K?
Yes, which is why there's only 398 in there. That's terrible.
Oh, all right.
That's a bylaw.
You can't put any more than 150
Yeah,
at
right.
five.
And so, in the part of that those are the long range financial plan targets, the 5% and the 3%. And there really has, and Mike can tell you this because he knows the history, but like there wasn't anything in the bank. The fact that we have even this amount in both accounts in the bank available is really a testament to the amount of work that was done. But now we've hit our target on stabilization, which is awesome, right? And we want to basically hold there. And so now we really should shift to CapEx. And so the only way we can do that is by eliminating that 150.
Got it.
But we'll do it in the fall.
Does anybody know the rationale? Do you know the rationale, Mike? That is, that bylaw?
Back in the day, it was believed that once you put it in there, it will be spent on capital projects. So you put $1 million in there. A year later, the school needs 2 million. You got $1 million sitting there with no projects, you can't get at it to pay the school. That's just an example, you know what I mean? So I believe once it goes into CapEx, it can only be expended on capital.
Yeah, CapEx is a 2/3 vote, right, Kim?
Yeah, just like stabilization. Yes, they're both savings accounts essentially.
But it's earmarked for capital expenditures. It's not like with stabilization. In theory, you could raise stabilization to fill any holes in a lean year with a budget. Not a wise practice because you never budget an operation with one-time funds. You should always, that's why we use the budget, to reoccurring funds, i.e. the tax. So with capital, with CapEx, that fund is used by capital expenditures. We might be starving over here and have $10 million. And that was the mindset one, which, to tell you the truth, it does make sense. Because as Kim says, the last couple of years, we've reached some unbelievable goals of hitting our stabilization. Well, I've been involved for 30 years. And we're just doing it now.
Right.
So like I
Things
said,
are looking.
things are looking up, but that doesn't mean it's gonna be like that forever.
No.
So
That was the safeguard at the time,
I,
which makes sense, just like you would your own house budget.
so in the transfer analysis for raise and appropriate, the proposed transfers of $26,000, that's essentially moving over something that's accounted for revenue, either 2.5% growth or levy limit.
Exactly. And so just for, it's a small detail in the budget that nobody ever really even pays attention to. But if you look at the very bottom of the detailed budget sheet, like where the budget is, all the way down at the bottom, there's the section that's special articles, like right before the totals. You'll see it says special articles and other expenses.
Yep.
That's that 26 right there. Each one of those individual lines needs authority through town meeting in order to be spent as part of the operating budget. That's what's happening here. Each one of those little things has its own article. And that happens every year. Those are usually in a consent calendar. But I don't know if the moderator this year is doing that, but that they can be because they're annual expenditures in that way. But that's how they tie back.
You're talking about at the bottom where it says town amended expenditures?
Yeah, where it says special articles and other expense. So if you go up a couple lines, see it says total special articles and other expenses.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
there it is.
Yeah, so you see, there's the 65, 17, 2,500, and then there's the 26,000 total. That each one of those ties back to an article that you have on the warrant right now in front of you. Each one gets approved separately at town meeting in order to be spent as part of the operating budget.
Right, that's Article 5, Article 6.
Yes. You get used to it after a while. Believe me, it's all right.
And I thought the Inman Hill roof wasn't approved. Was that approved?
So it wasn't approved as part of the operating budget. We moved it out. He wanted to spend it, he wanted to increase his operating budget one time in order to fix the roof, to which we said, that's a capital expenditure at $25,000. And so we moved it to capital.
And was it approved by the select board?
Yes. But you could choose to fund it from stabilization or free cash. That's your prerogative. You make a recommendation.
Or we can recommend not funded, period.
Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Our job is to advise taxpayer.
Right.
And usually the finance committee tries to make sure that we assure the people that we're getting the best bang for the buck.
Right.
Is there any questions you can, now that we?
Right, I got about 1 minute left.
I don't have. Do you guys?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you
Well,
coming
I'll
on.
see you all in a couple weeks. Mike, you got my message about the 26th, right? Mike Jones.
Yeah, yes. No,
Okay,
no, yep.
we'll be on an airplane, so I cannot I cannot be there to answer questions on the budget that night. But if you guys want to have your FinCom meeting and talk about the articles on the 26th, and then we do a read through of the budget for a hearing on the 27th, I can be there. I could be there Monday night, or I could be there Monday night virtually, Wednesday night in person. But I can't do Tuesday night right now. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
Good night, guys.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, so there's been some conversation where she's not gonna be able to be available on Tuesday meeting. So they want us to push it to Wednesday. She's gonna be on there.
It's a finance committee meeting. You guys decide. One for left hand. Information for you guys. But it's a finance committee meeting. It's a finance committee open budget hearing where we present to the public that will come down and is interested. And it's advertised.
Yep. So we have decided we want to have.
It's not a board of selectmen's meeting. It's a finance committee.
So does it make sense? You said she's available on Monday. Does it make sense for me? Yeah. She's virtually. It was, I think it's up to all of us to have this conversation. It's not necessarily up to give you a meeting. We've got a problem where we want to have support. Now, we know we can't have it, but we want to have our own meetings. We got to kind of come to some sort of a plan where it's like we either get the support and we either, decide when there's any meeting, check the schedule for Monday. See if we can have our own meeting. So we have to kind of make that decision. So,
Mr. Chair, if I heard correctly, Kim is going to be on vacation on the 25th. She's going to be back here live on the 27th. My preference, subject to the views obviously the rest of the committee, would be I prefer to have her here live. And I prefer to have her here not on vacation, quite frankly.
yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think if I had it my way, I would have her present for the support that she can provide.
What date is the annual?
Friday, May 6th.
So we're gonna have this basically a week before.
Right, we put it on as late as we could. So the 27th is the Wednesday.
Yeah.
Following Friday is the annual.
A week from the,
Right. So, I mean, we still have the 28th. And we have a week off. But
right.
as you know, in the past, we haven't waited that. long. This book.
Has to go to print.
So if
Is anybody
anything was to
listening?
change from the public hearing, the book would already be approved.
Has anybody mentioned the book?
We talked about it last meeting. I thought we had picked that date because
Because the book had to go to
the
print.
book had to go to print. Right?
But we don't send it to print, they do. So I don't even know when you're sending. We used to have the control out of me, here's the book, it's finally ready. I bring it to the printer, have it in print, I'm sure they had it ready just before the meeting. But now I don't know when they plan to send it.
I mean, if they are suggesting we move the meeting in order to support it, then
Mike, do you know anything? We're talking about the book. All this hinges on the book. Yes, we are required by bylaw to have a budget printed in the book that gets handed over
And
in the town meeting. So usually have the open budget hearing before the drop dead date, when you gotta get the information.
they usually need it a week to print that. But they're printing it now, I don't know.
Yeah, do you know who's print?
I honestly don't know. I remember you saw in the last meeting that they here now, so I don't know.
I don't know if they print it here, I think they send it out. to them.
Oh, maybe that's, yeah.
And I don't know when they're doing that. I used to
Well,
make sure.
if they're suggesting that we do the meeting on the 23rd, I have to count it for that amount of time.
Well,
That's shame on that.
Well, we should probably check.
I can definitely check. Yeah.
You know,
I know, absolutely. I can find out what that.
and because of the, in my opinion, the way that this budget, this particular budget season. And I think if we can't answer a question from the audience, we defer to the board
oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, no question.
and explain why.
Yeah.
Why we have to defer to the board. So, given.
I mean, this is a question answered. This is a question asked of us. We have not been given privy to that information. I'm not gonna stay, when I'm standing up there reading it, I'm gonna remember everything. And so if I look at you guys and everyone else is going, I'm gonna defer immediately to the select. board.
And somebody, again, somebody,
That's the way to do
somebody
it.
in the audience might say, well, why? Why are you guys voting on the budget that you don't have?
Well,
Would you,
yeah,
would
well,
you buy, would you buy a car without driving it or looking under the hood?
I guess there's also a difference between not having the information versus deliberating the information, being happy with it at the time of the meeting versus being able to.
Hindsight can be 20/20 for any single decision anybody makes ever at any amount of time. So
Yeah.
you can't necessarily clog up that thought
Sure.
process.
Right.
We're dead in the water if that's the case. We're going to get out of our own way.
Yeah, right. If I need to be able to recall all of the details that Kim can off the top of her head regarding all of these pieces,
I'm
then,
not, this is not a job for me.
then one, it's not the job for me. Yeah, I agree. Two, we have not been included at the level of conversation that's required in order to be able to call on those pieces. So,
So my biggest disappointment, particularly the year's budget, is that we used to be. Like I said, I've served a long time. I know I keep saying that. Gotta learn to stop saying it. I don't want to sound like a broken record. But we used to have complete control and know all the answers. Because we make recommendations to the townspeople. We also make recommendations to the board of selectmen as an informed committee. My personal opinion is I don't think we've been that really informed. Because we haven't,
my opinion is
we haven't been the chef
Yep.
in the kitchen.
Well, it is, my understanding is very clear that it's the Board of Selectmen's budget. It's not our budget, right? So
Yeah,
my conversations with individual members, that has been made crystal clear to me in those conversations, that it's not our budget, it's theirs. So, we have a financial team that supports all of the coming together of this information. I don't feel like I need to be the cook in the kitchen deliberating all of that stuff. I feel like we've been presented budgets from individual towns and the reasons behind understanding drivers and new things that they want to do. I feel comfortable that there's nothing I feel like I want to hold back on. Right? So I feel like when, as part of the conversations for me personally, I'm happy with the information I've received, the reasoning behind that information. And there's nothing I would hold back on in that regard. If I needed to give a ton of detail about each individual line item, then this whole budget process needs to be completely rethought because I am not comfortable recalling all of that information, nor even being able to pull it all up in gross Corey. So
I probably feel the complete opposite that you would like. I'm just being honest.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I feel that.
Honesty's the best policy.
Yeah, I mean, I know I missed 2 meetings this year. I've been virtual for most, and been in person only a couple. But I feel woefully inadequate to vote to approve a lot of these based on the information that I have. I just don't feel that we've been given the same kind of detail to feel comfortable to understand kind of what the numbers are, what's the rationale why, and all the detail that we typically get to review each of the articles in a very complete way where I feel that when we go to the town meeting, that we can say, yes, the FinCom has approved these. We understand what the cost is, why they're allocating it, where the money's coming from, and the budget is going to be balanced going forward. It feels the best prudent spending of the town. I don't feel this year that we've gotten it. And I don't feel comfortable, especially with some of these line items, to be able to vote yes or no. I don't know if they're good or bad. And that's just my point of view. And I just feel like we haven't gotten the information and haven't the opportunity to ask the level of questions that I think our committee is the check and balance. It is the selectmen's vote. We're the check and balance for the taxpayers of the town to be able to kind of push back and ask questions and make sure that we're spending the town's money. I don't feel that we've had that.
Well, so I guess my response to that would be, we didn't have a ton of questions for the individual departments, right? We had the opportunity to ask all of the departments questions. I think one thing that we should do is probably have a deeper audit of the departments. But we've had every opportunity to ask the deeper questions.
I completely agree. I mean, I don't know that there's anything that's been presented to us that we haven't had the opportunity to ask questions. I mean, I think I don't have an example of where someone's given us the budget. I mean, for example, Chief Kessler's, discussion about the brush truck. I don't know that there could have been anything else asked of him. Example on that.
And I wasn't present for that.
Oh, no, I didn't have any last week's example, just, like, that was just an example of last week, but there's definitely some things on here that I agree that we have to question. But I feel like there's a fair amount of them, we had enough information. That's just my feeling, I don't know, I mean.
Yeah,
We're talking about the warrants, we're talking about the budget, those are two different things.
I just tend to disagree. I think, and maybe like Mike, I've been on this committee for a little while, where each of the department heads would come and present their budget to us, and we would have an opportunity after it's already been presented to the select board, and they've got to kick the tires on it. And then they come to us and we're able to ask kind of detailed questions after it's already been.
And dig into it. To get a complete understanding.
Yeah, so that, to your point, so that we can stand in front of the town people and vote yes or no, like we did last year with the school budget and other things that we aren't a rubber stamp of just approving everything that comes through. We're able to ask the kind of questions, after everything has been kind of submitted through the select board, and we get another kind of pass at it, to kick the tires on it. And
Well, let me know. I mean, let me know who you want to bring in to have a discussion with, so you do feel comfortable. Because I feel like I hear us saying these things. We've seen these people. There's been no correspondence after the fact. Maybe there's more that I want to look into. So I mean, we have to start somewhere and move forward. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get stuck here. Like,
I guess I feel like
how do I move this along as the chairman so that we move forward? So someone else specifically that you want to have come in to represent the budget?
I'm just expressing my level.
For sure, no, and I want to solve the situation. I want everybody here to be on the same page. I'm not looking to have a divided board over a dozen different items.
I don't think we're divided.
No, I know, I'm not saying.
It's my belief that what we're saying is, where we got to right now, we didn't have any part of it. You might think all the questions were asked, but you weren't,
I don't, yeah, I don't have enough knowledge.
you weren't,
I'm just,
it doesn't matter,
for sure.
but you weren't running the meeting. The meeting, all of these meetings was at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, number 3 on the agenda. Then,
Well-
okay, you guys get done, out you go, and they kept going on the meeting. Years past, and every year that I've been on, we have a meeting, and if it took us to 1 o'clock in the morning to get through the scheduled people, that's what it was. I'm not looking to stay here till 1 o'clock in the morning, but what I'm saying is,
And typically Kim would be here and the department heads would be here.
right,
And so that if the department head says X, we can go to Kim and say, what about this? What does that impact that? And we'd be able to have all the information to be able to vote on every article and feel that we had all the information to represent. And I'm not passing kind of blame. I'm just expressing my lack of information that I feel. And like I said, I did miss 2 meetings, so I'll take, the things that were covered there that, I like the brush truck. I wasn't here for that, so I can't kind
Oh,
of.
no, I was happy to see it.
and by any means, the way from what I'm hearing, is by no means are we looking to stall the procedure.
No, I'm not.
No. I'm looking to solve the situation of like,
Right.
I don't want you to feel in that way, and
The only way
if
it's
anybody else that feels that way, I certainly want to help solve that. Like,
The only way it's gonna get solved is when the Board of Selectmen turns the budget back over to the Finance Committee and the financial team that they put together. The treasurer collector.
I don't know enough about how that aspect works.
Well,
I've
you
been told.
will learn.
Well, and that's fine. I've been told that it's the select board, like Mike said, it's the select board's budget to approve for us to review and agree with and make recommendations on. Now, I can't speak to any more than that.
No, and again, I'm not criticizing anybody.
No.
I'm not saying.
No, I'm not
anybody-
taking it that way.
But if you take a look at the basic bylaw, Finance Committee bylaw, how it's written. No, it's not the Board of Selectmen's budget. It's the Finance Committee prepares the town's budget. It's the town's budget, not the Board of Selectmen. It's the town's budget, it's the people's budget. And we make the recommendation. We advise the Board of Selectmen on, that's what we thought as representatives of the town people, how we should think that the money is being spent. They recommend saying, you know what, we have a picture on what, not to say that they just don't rubber stamp, but the recommendations they make to us is, well, in our negotiations, we're gonna try to hold pay raises this year to 3%. So use that 3% when you figure salaries and wages. We're gonna, or 2% or whatever. We're thinking that we're gonna do this project out here. We're thinking that we're gonna need $150,000. When you go through the budget, see if we can do it within the budget.
Now, were you doing all of what you're just describing? Well, example, Kim has been in? Was that something that Kim was just not doing 5 years ago?
And one of the reasons why we hired a person like Ken is to help run the town. Because again, the Board of Selectmen is a part-time job. Okay? And the reason why they hired the financial team is again, to help us formulate the budget, because they're here every day.
No, I understand.
You know,
listen, like,
They're earning a salary doing it. Where the bylaw was made so that we represent the people. And explain it to the people. And assure the people that an unbiased group of people, male or female, looked at the budget and helped formulate it. And assuring the people that we're trying to get the best bang for the buck for every individual need of the community. Food, fire, that's all. We're not we don't set policy. That's not, when I first got on, the Board of Selectmen said, we realize this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to analyze the money needs, see if 2 and 2 equals 4. Not to set policy saying, oh, no, the park department can't have this. You know what I mean? Yeah, we don't set policy.
Can I ask a question of, so was this year different? Because again, I came on.
Sure.
Oh, was this year different as far as interviewing the department? As in other words.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
See, because I have to tell you, and again, I'm just gonna speak for myself. I thought when Chief Keshler went over the brush truck, we were here alone, and I think I got more out of that one than all the other the ones went to the select board combined. And the only reason I say that is that I'm not saying that they didn't make me intimidated, that's for sure, because I know I'm a taxpayer like everybody else. But it just seems like their meetings are, and I don't want to say they're rushed, because they have a huge agenda. But as Mike said, there was a piece that was there, and I felt that if I had a question, and as I was thinking of this, a lot of times I'm thinking of it, and before you know it, the next department. So there's one time I almost wanted to say, could we go back to, and that person was gone. And again, I'm not blaming the selectmen for this at all. They have a huge agenda that they're trying to get through. But I just sort of, and again, maybe it's because it's my first time I'm going through it. But I think Nick's point is that I felt a little like we were almost like part of that, and we better hurry up and get it done because it's next. That's it. I just felt kind of, I don't want to use the word rough.
Right, so, I mean, again, this was the first year it was presented like.
No, it
So
was.
for next year, if we all decide to remain on committee, or if we get, whoever up for reappointment gets reappointed, decides that we want to get reappointed and we serve at the will of the selectmen, just because we want to serve, and when your time is up, they don't have to appoint. Okay, I think for next year, if everybody's still here, you see the frustrations. I'm not coming down here to sit in the audience and be told, you know what I mean? Like you said, you feel like.
Can I ask a question? I mean,
I think there, the attempt to say, okay, let's try to consolidate these meetings.
Yeah, well,
And see if we can save time, be more efficient. I think it was a good attempt to say, let's try something different and see if it works. And from my standpoint, I don't think it was as effective. I'm not saying that the thought process wasn't good or the attempt or that there was no kind of, everyone was trying to do the right thing, and especially with COVID, everyone's like, I agree, right? There was no ill thought around it. I just think from my standpoint, I don't feel like I got the same kind of depth of knowledge on each of the articles that we had. That's it.
And as I mentioned,
Full stop, no more.
and as I mentioned, the select, I'm not blaming anybody. They have a packed agenda. And I was always thinking, if I was on the other side sitting there, I'd want to hurry up through it too, because you got all these department heads and other business. I mean, one time we came here, what was it? Showtime Entertainment was, in other words, that was on, no, I'm just saying is that, and then we're sitting here trying to figure out what, asking questions.
I see your,
It's just different.
I see your point, but in the same token, when we started this process from the very beginning, we had, what I thought was an agreement. Anybody had any kind of issue about anything, we agreed we'd bring it. So, and in fairness to everybody, everything everybody's saying, that was the plan. So I hear what you're saying right now, but at the same time, and I'm not saying we don't have the opportunity, if there is someone else you want to bring in, but that was something we established from the start. So if there's anything that you thought of the night before, or the night after rather, or 5 days later, that you wanted information, if it was something that we could do in email, or if it was something simply that asked them to come back. It was, I've asked, I can't tell everybody how many times if there's any problems or questions, and I haven't gotten. So I'm happy to bring back anybody who wants to be brought back, but at the same time, we have to, get our head around the fact is that
That's fair enough, Mike. I mean, you definitely.
I'm trying to do everything we can. I don't want, but I also don't want you guys to feel like we've been included, I mean, I don't know what additional information select board's getting that we're not getting at the same meeting, if there's things that are going on behind closed doors. I don't know that, but,
What I think is happening now is we're being the 11th hour is coming fast. on us. And we have to make decisions. I'm not looking to hold up. Go to town meeting and say, no, we couldn't vote on it.
No, I'm not looking at that, you know, that just doesn't make us look like we did our jobs, basically. You know,
Well,
like, right, we want to make sure we did our job.
so I think going forward, when we regroup again, the town meeting is the apex of it all, what we work for the year. Okay, it's a new budget, when the new budget season starts, we get a little vacation, and then we get ready for the special in November to decide what we do when the free cash has been certified. Any other thing that didn't have room on the annual, we take care of in there. And that's when we say, for this budget season, finance committee proposes that we do it like this. Again, we got no members here that I'm very impressed with. So now that we got one, as a group, as a team,
No, I'm sure.
as a team, we have one season down under our belt. And we're learning from what we feel is, and then we could have done a little better, or this could have happened, could have felt a little better. So we just keep fine tuning. Like I said, I get no problem. I like everybody in the room. That's why I said it.
Yeah.
It was great. It's great to be together in a meeting instead of looking on the screen, you know, and we just fine tune it. Because this shouldn't be frustrating. We shouldn't be upset. We should be enjoying. And I've done it for so long that I still enjoy doing it. It's just that it's, say, you get frustrated, as you can see, your first year, you go, if I know it was like this, I'd get second thoughts about it.
Hopefully. Hopefully not second.
So I guess going forward is, should we meet? Should we meet again to formally see, I call it Article 4. Somewhere along in the last couple of years, they changed it to Article 3. All the town budgets are included.
Yes.
It used to be Article 4.
No, we should definitely set up another meeting to get this figured out and to dive on this and get some more.
Run through this. Well, see, this is the town meeting. Yeah, that's what we're gonna get.
But now we can do that.
I have a copy, I'll-
Yeah, so next week. And
Do we have another meeting scheduled right now?
So,
So,
This, ours was the 26th at 7, Wednesday night, the selectmen board meeting at 6 P.M. And Thursday, FinCom is here at 7. So, I have no choice, but,
Tuesday? Next Tuesday?
yeah, well, yeah.
so,
It's our
I'm
meeting
here next
to
Tuesday,
vote.
right?
we're not going to meet Tuesday because Kim's not available.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I'm getting my dates on this. You're right.
So we're talking about rescheduling for Wednesday with the board.
Yep.
Select. board.
And now,
Wait a minute, back up a little bit. I thought that was for the open hearing budget.
Right, yeah.
What I'm saying is we should try to meet again next Tuesday, finish up any, hold our finance committee meeting so that we vote on Article 3, which is line item 3
Next Tuesday.
next week,
and then we meet Wednesday.
which would be what, following Wednesday?
No, the very next day.
All right.
Oh, wait,
Next
hold on.
Tuesday is the 19th,
Oh, I'm sorry, we got a whole weekend.
yes.
Yep.
And then we've got the 26th for the hearing, so we need to change it to the 27th, right?
And why don't we keep that meeting, 26, in case we need it? Does that make sense? to everybody?
That's the only unknown is what's the deadline to have all this information to go to the printer. Because by rights, it's that paper that gets printed.
I'm sure it's already in the works because we don't do that.
So that's what we vote on.
Yeah.
But if anything changes and it screws up the number in the book, and you gotta make a statement at the town meeting, book went to print, this
Oh,
line
yeah.
item, different. But we should actually find out
When it goes in, I'll send it.
when the information has to go to print.
What do you want me to do, Chairman?
So, yeah, let's book another meeting for the 19th.
So I know I'm only one person, but I won't be here.
Yeah, no, no objection, obviously, Mr. Chair, I would not be here.
That's right, 'cause that's school vacation. Is there anything Monday the 25th?
It's planning board, public hearing. Why can't we just do another 26th?
It's just, I was just trying to find a way to get jam another one in there in case it just didn't go as planned.
Like I said, it's,
What's gonna be,
Yeah, it's good.
we're gonna have the public hearing.
Yeah, that's almost like that.
We're gonna have a previous meeting to what?
we still have to vote on the
Yeah, it's
individual line.
in the line items.
Can I have that?
Yeah.
Such as, how it'll go, just like at the town meeting. Okay, general government. Line item 114 moderator. Salaries. $100. Expenses, $100. We have a motion made to accept, second, on favor, aye. Selectmen, line item 122. Stipends, we read it. Total, right? 10,020, expenses. 62,700.
That
We
big
usually
picture.
run right through them all. And tell anybody that wants to hold them,
Right.
anybody who's in the audience, if anybody comes.
I remember that from, I don't know.
And then-
Holes.
Right.
Yeah, do we really read, I feel like I remember at one of the town meetings, we would say, if we're going to do the whole thing, does anybody have line items, specific line items that they would like? to
Well,
hold?
when you read the line item, it'll say whole. So you're right. We'll go moderator. Salaries, $100. Expenses, $100. Line item 122. Selectmen, stipends, 1020. Expenses, 6270.
Yeah,
Finance committee, right? Salaries, 200. Somebody might say, full.
yeah, no, I understand that.
And we write down, that gets all run through, then we make a motion to approve. Then you go back and
Yeah, just from a procedure perspective, I thought during the meeting, it was just lumped as. I didn't remember going through each individual line item during the town meeting, but I just don't remember.
Yeah, but we read the whole thing. That's the thing
and we vote on it.
at the end. So we ask them if they want to hold. If anybody holds it, we go to all the way through, and then we go back to the held articles and ask whoever.
Oh,
So,
so we have, if anybody wants to hold, if they hold, then.
Then we
read
go
through each
back. and
individual.
ask them what-
the town clerk will be making notes on what line item was held.
Yeah.
Our secretary will make the notes. Usually one or two of us will make the notes, and then we go, okay, all right, let's see. Yeah, oh, no, you forgot, you know what I mean? Something like, oh, no. Line item 47 was held
And our
Yeah, but we
public
only
hearing
discussed the ones that
is
we
a
want to know.
duplicate of that.
after we vote. So you hold those, okay? These articles were held. We vote on what wasn't held, and then we take each individual article that was held and talk it out. Because that's where somebody might say, hey, I don't think the selectmen deserve $10,200. Explain that. So you go through it.
And then we address it, and you have to explain it.
Yeah, for what it's worth, next point here about the process here. By the way, I don't know if there's any reflection on it. I think it really was aspiration, sense of trying to be efficient in this time. But I think that what Nick is describing in terms of, and certainly there's been every reasonable opportunity to talk to them, to not only the numbers, but also question folks. But I think what Nick is describing is that previously what we did have the benefit of was that sort of first pass by the board of select. And then perhaps some modification of requests by that has been made by a department head then before they come in. So then at that juncture, there would be an opportunity for us to meet with the department head and then also hear, for example, from Kim Newman as a representative of the board of selectmen, their position on it. So I do think that there's probably some real benefit to that process. I do agree, though, the way we pursued it for this cycle, certainly worthy of pursuit, but I would agree. I think the way it was previously done, you know, I think provided us with that sort of pass that the board of selectmen had an opportunity to chew on what had been presented in the first instance, and then it was brought to the finance committee. At least that's my recollection. Right? Whereas here it was sort of all combined together on the theory that it was an opportunity for us to sort of hear the exchange between the department head and the board of selectmen. And that was a fair and reasonable thing, I think, to pursue. But I also think that part of it is that there's exchanges that are taking place appropriately with department heads, for example, after that meeting with the board of selectmen. So, and we're not part of those conversations, right? So to some extent, it's a little bit of catch up now in order to get that summary, right? And I'm not suggesting any impropriety or anything like that, just it's a process, right? But because I do believe that, quite frankly, they made every effort to present, for example, with, where the money is coming from, what the budget drivers were, for example, what the amounts were for the budget drivers as well. It's all transparent. It's all like available to us. So, but I do think there's an added element of sort of sequencing, if you will. And I think that's, I don't know what words
No, I think you said it a lot better than I.
But really, this sort of sequencing, it was value added to sort of the process that I think Kim and her team and the financial team would bring to bear on the proposal made by the department heads. Then we would hear about it afterwards, and this is why we're recommending. And then there's that conversation with not only the department head, but also with him as a representative.
Right. Yeah, we weren't seeing that. The process was, right now, this year, we saw kind of a rough draft.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And typically we would see kind of more of a finished product by the time it got to us.
Was it as last minute in years past? I mean, I don't know, I haven't exactly about it, but it seems to be it's very tight timelines. Is that typically how it has been in the past years?
Not really. I think this year, like I said, we're up against the wall. 2 weeks.
Well, no, what I'm saying is this.
We are.
Oh, no, yeah, but it's just, I'm just asking, is this been the case in previous projects?
No, if we usually start right after the first of the year. And you spend a week in November getting ready for the special town meeting. And you make plans for how we're gonna handle the upcoming budget year, starting right after Christmas. And my personal opinion is, this year here, the board's gonna change. There's gonna be 5 members. 3 of them. It has the potential to have 3, 4, at least 3 new people that probably don't have a clue. It has that potential on.
Yeah, 3 members who are brand new that haven't served before, possibly.
Right, and
Well, Mike,
I'm gonna get
Mike
this.
Goddard served. And Mike's into the 1 year unopposed.
Oh, okay.
So Mike does.
Okay, yeah, so 2.
He's served.
What I'm saying is the potential, because there's no guarantee that anybody's gonna win. So what I'm saying is the potential, it could be 3 new people that are gonna be newbies and learn. They're gonna learn the position. Nobody's born, so you follow what I'm saying? Just like when I first got on, for the first couple of years, I sat there and on, and kept my mouth shut and tried to remember things, the procedure, how to go. Because I've been doing it so long, it's almost like tying my shoes. This is your first year, right? It's all new to you. Your first year.
Yeah.
But you guys have financial backgrounds. It's apparent to me, you know,
Well,
so you're catching on quick, which is a good thing.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, I was just gonna, this is that, I also think that a good portion of what was being described to us, is my recollection, is that, and this is consistent with prior years, quite frankly, there's very little discretionary spending that's occurring, in the sense that, you know, we've got contractual obligations that are driving this budget in many instances. And those are the big budget items. So as a practical matter, we're really talking about sort of at the margins. And then you are speaking to this particular asks now, for example, brush trucks, particular ask, right? But from an operating budget perspective, the obligations are such where those are cast anyway. Those are cast as a matter of contract.
Right.
So your view, my view, any member's view of whether this is too much or this is too little, that's a decision that's been made
Right. And-
somewhere else.
Right.
Right? So to some extent, I think that while we certainly have a role, and we have an important role here, it's very much at the margins in many instances on the dollars that we're talking about here, right? When you think about what is sort of truly discretionary, right? So for example, campus improvements and the like, you know, those are not driven by contract, right? But there are expenditures that are going to be driven by, as Kim was alluding to, construction of the present police station and, you know, safety protocols, insurance protocols that necessitate, you've got to go out and hire somebody to do that. Well, that is what it is.
Right.
We're not going to be able to sort of, unless anyone here, perhaps with the exception of you, Mike, as a heavy equipment operator, is going to step forward and knock that thing down. We're going to end up having to pay someone to knock that down.
Absolutely.
So,
So again, it would have, so would that go along with what you're saying? It would make sense. That's why the building committee. But I was on fire station building committee and this, because I do have a back. Chairman, Joe Cronin, has an extensive background in the same type of industry that I'm in. So it's not like, you know what I mean? You know what's going on. Again, when someone's talking about the
light pole in front of the police station, 3.5 feet up, it burns me every time I see it.
Right, because-
Why I didn't put a light on the building and replace that $10,000 light bulb, I have no idea. But again.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Look out there, there's a light bulb that's literally 7 feet off the building. That literally could have been achieved by a light on the building.
and I also think it's important to point out that any action, of course, as we know, by this committee or other, voting in favor of any one of these articles, doesn't exclude any one of us from dissenting from that
Right.
vote. Or for that matter, taking the town meeting floor and expressing appropriately what your view of the matter is. There's nothing. So, you know, as far as the department heads have been concerned, Mike is correct. The department heads came in, they answered questions that were put to them. You followed with obviously requests for any feedback, any follow-up, any further questions. The next point, it's a different process as well. I think everyone is correct. By the way. I think everyone is correct, but perhaps on a go-forward basis, we revert to the process as it previously was. Because I do think it has, this sort of lays bare to me that actually had some benefit to having that sort of first cut from Board of Selectmen and then the town administrator and the department head come back, present to us. It's just a finance committee meeting now, Mike's point. If it goes to 1 in the morning, so that we get satisfied with our answer, with the questions that are being asked. And the department has, at least in my experience here, been very transparent, very happy to answer any questions we put to them.
Right, so again, it's, our meetings are devoted to the budget. Selectmen's meeting is devoted to whatever they, could be 20 things on there.
Sure. Well, so I'd like to address that because they left it open. They didn't give us a time limit. If we wanted to take the Board of Selectmen meeting till 1 AM, I didn't feel like that wasn't an option. So I'd like to understand what this extensive list of questions that are open and list of unidentified information that's open that we're all looking
Yeah,
for.
so,
right?
so I guess from my standpoint, it would be that, so each department head comes in with their copy of their budget. They present it to us typically on hard copy, and we're able to kind of go through and ask questions. So we can go through and say, so talk to me about the union contracts coming up. What's the status of it? Talk to me about I ask oftentimes the question to this school or school representatives around the healthcare costs. And understanding kind of what's driving that and are they going to be part of that as part of the next negotiation? Or if the water board comes in, they're talking about the hydrants and we want to understand kind of, how many feet of pipe is going to be replaced this year as part of their budget. That level of detail is not covered in the select. And so typically the selectmen, they're kind of going over the high level of the budget. And then the department heads come in with a detailed budget and we're able to ask any question that we want, either that comes up from the select board or that pops up within that list of the line items that you may not have thought about, but when you see it, you're saying, well, and I wasn't here, so, I can't, but, the brush fire. How many brush fires did we have last year?
Anybody ask that question?
Yeah, I don't know. So if we had, if we had 25 brush fires last year or 50 brush fires, you say, okay, well, we probably need a brush fire. If we had 3, then maybe not. But that's the kind of detail that you can kind of ask in that setting when they're here presenting their budget to us. And we're able to kind of kick the tires so that when we go in front of the town and they say, we need a new brush truck, I can feel comfortable saying, and I wasn't here, so I can't say.
No,
But I can say, I feel comfortable that that is an expenditure out of our capital of 390,000 that we have. We're going to spend 220 of it or whatever it is, but that's a reasonable cost. So that's the level of detail that we get when they come here. They have all their numbers and we can go line by line in each of their budget items. That's the level of detail we typically would do. Each department comes in and we go through their budget with them and they talk to them. We can ask any question.
So it would be done just with the finance committee. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. And by the way, I don't think that, and I think this year, again, I wasn't there previously. I think it was a good, it was a good attempt to try and save time. But I think in some ways it may be adding time because we may be asking more questions than we might. And I agree with you, Mike, we have that opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
But we're thinking of it as we're going along because it's like, okay, now what did this person?
I don't have the experience to know how the detail of the report, like to your point about the hydrants, that's contracted to book it. That's, what are we gonna, like, I don't know what we do with that component if we don't like it.
No, I mean, they have a revolving fund that they're kind of capturing money in to do kind of,
Understand.
yeah, to do
We're
repairs.
supposed to
We
understand.
voted that last year to set up a revolving fund so that they capture money for repairs. So we want to know, what are they planning to use that revolving
Yeah,
fund
no,
for?
that's, yeah, so that's,
That's what-
that's a fair question to ask, I just.
Yeah, and I agree, Nick, to some extent, and this goes back to some extent, some of the questions that are asked here likely would be the very same question to be asked on town meeting. So get here is that, let's hash it out here now, so we're gonna.
Yeah.
So it may be a situation where we have a choice in the matter. That is, the expense is what it is, and you're gonna pay, and you're gonna enjoy paying for it. But at least we can ask a question as to what is the next cycle where there's a negotiation for that particular item. So for example, the next one, healthcare costs. Well, it may very well be that that is coming up for as part of negotiation in the next part of the cycle. And for example, exploration of alternatives available through some consortium. So it could very well be that it's not a question of we're gonna shave $500 off.
Yeah, right, no.
Or we're gonna shave
It's more what I was
500,000.
saying. I get what you're saying. That's what I was asking. That's kind of what I was asking.
Yeah, yeah, and so it also is a relationship issue as well. I would go so far as to say it's a relationship issue as well. Partners come in, partners come in, have a conversation with us, including Chief Kessler.
Right.
Provided substantial document for his request, went through it, and knowing Chief Kessler as we do, and over time, having dealt with him, he doesn't make these requests lightly. So when he expresses a need for apparatus, I do it as I have to accept the professional in that position, who's a public safety officer, who's expressing a need and has demonstrated that he's attempting to achieve every conceivable funding source before he comes here, including grants and the like. So I don't want to be in a position of substituting my judgment, on something like that for a public safety official who says you need, right? But that's just my opinion, right? Others may see it different. But I think the process that Nick was describing, as we previously had it, if we had to revert back next year, I guess I would prefer to go that route. That's not a criticism, by the way, of the way it perceived this going, just a preference, one over the other. If the efficiency described probably was achieved, because if you're, for example, department head, you very well only appeared once, not twice. So that, in that respect, some efficiency was achieved. But then what's lost? What's lost?
Yeah, and I think, these are public meetings. We're going to be able to watch this afterwards, and, we may ask a question about kind of a union contract, or at least be able to express our point of view about how we think that should be looked at going forward. And it's in a public forum, and we're able to kind of document that the finance committee is asking these types of questions. And it may or may not get resolved in the next contract or budget cycle or whatever, but at least we're having the due diligence to be able to have an opportunity to ask those questions and review their budget line item by line item. And I do think I may be a bit old school, but I think there's some value to have the printed copies and have them hand out printed copies for us to kind of go through line item by line item, because then we know what we know what the latest version is. Everyone is working off the same copy, not 4.5, no, not 4.5, 4.8. Okay, we did a V2 of that. Everyone's looking at the exact same numbers, and we can kind of walk through it. And there isn't any confusion as to which numbers we're looking
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Maybe old fashioned, it may be sticks and stones, but it's to get a hard copy here.
Because then we're all looking at the same numbers, not, I'm looking at my phone, I didn't bring my laptop here, and,
That's one thing they could definitely do with that SharePoint file system is to send out tape or something to that effect, like if that program needs to work and stuff like that. To let you know it's a machine. But you just don't. Right now, you just don't know. I agree with that, Steve.
Yeah, and that's,
I mean, I won't get into the details of SharePoint. I mean, all that is available in SharePoint, right?
I don't know how to use it. I don't know if it's available.
You can
I
see
just-
exactly
I
what
did
the last
like,
time it was
Like we
modified.
use Procore at work, and every single contractor that we work with uses it wrong and differently wrong each instance. So it's enough to make you want to eat a gun. So I get that. Like it probably does all of those features, we're just not using it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is that, you go to open it, and even if you don't make a change, it may save a version of it. And now all of a sudden you just email the whole world that there's a new version, but nothing actually changed.
Yeah.
So there's pluses and minuses.
Okay,
It's
so
all-
yeah,
it's all
that's something, you know, yeah, because I looked at it a dozen different times, you know, just casual, but you know, it's good to have as a reference.
Yeah, so
How did the highway budget?
Specifically, just
Oh,
you catching me.
What, I don't remember seeing it. No, I've been around it. I mean, anybody ask Alan how much salt he had left over from last year that he was able to save for this year? You know, because he's got material.
yeah, so I remember talking, so this is the thing, right? I remember talking about those details in the meeting. I can't recall exactly how many pounds of salt they had left over and all that good stuff, right? So I remember talking through those details in the meeting. I don't remember having an issue with what he said in the meeting. Because he talked about, everything left for essentially the rest of the winter, right? There's a lot of discussion on fuel costs, so this is my point is,
Yeah, you know,
right, I don't remember, I don't recall having any issues with where the departments wanted to go, what they were describing. I don't have-
Right, I'm not, I asked that question not to see if there was any issues, but you just said it, fuel cost was high, right?
well, no, actually, what we learned from Alan was that they buy it through a cooperative, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that fuel cost was much, much lower than ours, and it wasn't taxed, and that was the question that came up, so I remember that specific question, or I think there's.
So how many gallons do you use?
I didn't ask that question, I promise you I didn't ask that. I know that the police chief said he used less fuel, I think, last year, because they were doing less chasing, right?
And I remember that he wanted the roof on the other building, we mentioned. I think Kim mentioned that should be kept.
Yeah, I think he was trying to get, if I'm quoting it correctly, he was trying to get it done on his operational budget, asking for a one-time increase. And then Kim's like, and he said it was like 23,500.
Yeah.
It was like, maybe 25,000. It's he put it through the CapEx here. So I think that was the conversation that was had there.
What kind of equipment is he storing?
So
Anybody ask a question? So,
There's Shirley.
what kind of equipment is being stored in the one he wants to put the roof on?
Is that the building?
That's close to building. Yeah, he was storing winter equipment in there. And summer,
Yeah.
summer.
That's what I'm-
equipment.
We've
Also the transition off season of the storage.
I mean, and that's typically what we would ask, like, going back to, I don't know what's the, you know, the fireman. Is that new truck going to be stored inside or stored outside?
No, I think.
Do we have space for it, right? Where's that going to be stored? What's going to happen? All that.
Yeah, I mean, we can, you know, like, I know when you figured that, we did ask a lot of those questions. Yeah. I'm not trying to say that you're not wrong. The fact is that I don't have, we definitely did not get presented the level of detail you're discussing. And it seems that did not occur. I mean, if that's something that we were supposed to be versed in, better than, you know, select board, I guess, if you say it that way.
So they used to do.
Yeah, you know, yeah, from that. Saying here.
We used to know everything. And if people asked you on the street, hey, by the way, I know you're on the finance committee. How about this? You'd be able to say, oh, yeah, explain that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try to say I can explain every work of the town government. Like that, thing, I guess.
One thing I would like to see that we didn't even get to see like any numbers until I want to say it was like January.
From my recollection, everybody was completely behind. Budgets were being pushed off, like they were having trouble getting their budgets completely to King. It was an email about what, maybe it's the first week of February, telling the last few people to get their budgets in. Budgets had been pushed.
Do we know if there was an initial request? Then it went in because, you know,
And I can look back at my email, that I don't know if I was, yeah, I don't know if we were CC'd on the email that said. I think we were. I don't know.
There was one in particular that I remember. The numbers. It was like was the final ones, obviously. And I want to say it was at 4 o'clock in the, whatever this, 4 o'clock. Day of the meeting. And I remember it because, it was, you didn't have any time to review it, you didn't have any time to do really anything. I remember thinking, I think one of the times we mentioned it to Lonnie.
That was the school, so that was the school board stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but there was another one, I thought there was another one that we had. Last minute. And the only reason why I mentioned this is, mentioned it to Lonnie, he sort of dismissed it. Like, no big deal. And to me, it was sort of a big deal just because, and again, I know they're all busy, but could someone else have just given that to us? Like, and I remember the date, it was, I think it was that Thursday, or Friday. Before. The date was right on it. We didn't get it to 4 o'clock. I could look at my emails and see it. But it's sort of stuff like that. It would have been nice. And after that, I will say we were copied in a routine manner. That would be nice if that happened from here on in. It has been. I just hate to go back to that. I think I made a comment about what's done is done. But next year would be nice to consider.
right. This is why I wanted to capture it in the notes of documentation should be sent out a week before
Correct.
the meeting.
That'd be great.
When do you want me to make that meeting on the 27th, 6 p.m.?
What works better for you guys?
Selectmen meeting.
I think that's the time, well, that's the year. Yeah, so let's, I think we should do 7.
Seven.
Town people have more opportunity
Get them from
to
the,
get
So
out, get
does
settled.
that give the selectmen time to have their meeting?
I'm just gonna plan to get up. So I'll make sure the selectmen know that we want to do. It's up. So
What day and what time?
It's going to be the Wednesday, the 27th.
Yeah.
At 7 p.m. The selectmen will be here at 6 p.m. They're-
And we'll keep our meeting the 26th to go over. So
any last remaining.
and I'll let her know, regardless of what the book needs to be ready, that's a little bit.
So what do we have left open that we need to procedurally do? We still need to go through the rest of them.
So we need to go through the line items for the budget, which is based off of Article 3, correct? And
We've got to go through Article 3.
So when I change, I have to change this Tuesday, April 26th meeting, because it says it's a public hearing.
yes, we want to change the continuation of the warrant articles.
Review.
I mean, they should have all the hard numbers. for the warrant. And I gotta make sure who's gonna write the motions. So should she say that? Or-
Yeah, should you have?
You wanna get there and say, oh, no, I thought you guys.
Kim was going to
you
do
were
it.
on there.
No.
Kim was going to do it.
She did, they gave me a template, full guy from last year, and use. So I was gonna grab it.
Yeah, she's been doing it for the last few years. Great.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
The only what?
Well, so do we need to finish anything else today? Do we need to go through any more warrant items, or are we, do we want to digest it back at home again after this discussion?
So it pops up in the neighborhood's head, we have the warrant, articles, we have the budget. Pretty much everything's locked in. If there's something that comes up that anybody wants to have more information on, let's try to get that.
I think in Town Beach, so.
Yeah,
That's
and I said to Ken to please make sure she does something with that document to upload that so we can take a look at it.
Well,
I mean, I
let's just take a quick second. Yeah, I personally.
we don't have any issue.
Oh, I
On
personally,
Town Beach, if you don't have quotes.
I personally think we should do something.
Absolutely.
I'll explain a little bit of it because it came before CPA, for CPA funding. We don't. I think it's a thing that we should do, especially when we using CPA.
Is it, I don't think it's, is it saying using city money for it? For one?
I know, it should.
Yeah, it is, it is.
But I couldn't understand. She said she and the board of selectmen don't like the idea. Is that what
I mean, if I was to infer, I think they were kind of saying that there isn't any real issue yet, it's a sketch for quotes. I'm not 100% sure, I guess he gave the town meeting with the petition to get it done. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I think he got a citizen's position to get it on the board of selectmen. But he does have.
I mean, it's how it meets needs work, with stumps that are like literally just poking out of the ground, and lying in plain sight. It's not pretty good. And it's a big driver for the town.
The plan is not to build a skyscraper. So the amount of engineering that has to be done. Kind of basic, and Dan's got a pretty good handle.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, you gotta rip out some stumps,
Yeah.
get some material,
Yeah.
fill in the hole, do a little grading like this and that, make sure the water don't go in. Blah, 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 and it sounds like they've got a pretty good basic plan.
So do they have any quotes to do? Or in fact, I mean, I get like what you just said, it's like, that's a lot of money to rip out some stuff to build a wall. Spread some sand.
I'm not sure, I can't remember if he's got some actual,
Does he get quotes or whatever?
again, if we had more time, we could say, hey,
You know,
come on in here.
we can
explain."
definitely reach out to, I can
I mean,
definitely.
when Dan was here earlier, he said you were still waiting on fence quotes.
Oh, that
Sounds like we
we
still-
still. That's fine. Everything's a work in progress, so I'm not discounting that at all. But I get no problem sending him an email, just asking him and give us any updated information. He has for documentation.
And to be quite honest, that kid does his own. That guy does.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
I wonder if we can lump the fence that he needs and the fence that we're putting over there with the same guy. Seriously, with the same fence contractor,
Again, those are questions that would be asked.
right? I don't know how much that fence is, if we can say, hey, you know,
There's two fences.
how these two fences, what can you price both?
Well, it's usually sold by the foot, so you're right. The more you get, cheaper it is.
Yeah. At least a question to ask.
Well, there's a motion on the floor, Mr. Chairman, to adjourn.
Yes.
I didn't hear anybody second.
A second.
Well, so
Can you guys stop?
See, we haven't been together in a while, so you know.
yeah, when nobody wants to leave. All right, so the plan moving forward then is on the 26th, we're going to come back and deliberate on all of the articles again, soup to nuts, and we will
Less awful.
bless it at that point.
And at that meeting, we'll know if anything got changed,
Yeah, that's, yeah, and then,
and then the
That's all
following.
against
night,
spreadsheet.
And
Bless or not bless.
bless or not bless.
yeah, give our opinion.
Yeah, right. And
Possibly, can send us the budget. And then,
so Kim sent us a PDF version of the budget, and it's also in the SharePoint.
But we need verification is what that PDF, is that what's going to be printed in?
Yeah,
And
okay.
if we get an answer that says yes, then print it out and we act.
Now, she said she's not available that Tuesday, so she said.
Yeah, she's fine. She's fine. She was willing to do Monday on vacation. I said, "Okay."
well, she sent me that. Have it in an email. I'll print it for all of us.
Yeah.
Oh,
But one response back to her of Mike's point, this is the final version that is planned for the FinCom. Okay, and on that Tuesday, on our own, without Kim present, we'll go through the articles and the individual budget to
Come to the town meeting. We as a group come to with the amount of information you've been given. And if there's anybody can think of anything else that they want answered in review.
we should also plan to have Dan come to talk about town beach.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, asking, I was actually asking, them to send an email, just have them send information to us.
Even though it's a secret to community preservation, it's a money.
Yeah.
We have to give them. They'll make the motion on the floor. And I corrected the moderator last year. And said, hey, come here. You're supposed to ask the finance committee after the motion.
Yeah.
What our recommendations. That's what it's supposed to do. Because,
Now, CPA funds come from where exactly?
you know, when you get your tax bill.
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
There's a
percentage.
There's 3%. The town voted, that's the max. That is allowed. You had a choice of you take 1%, 2%, or the max. When you do the max of 3%, you're sure to get the maximum amount of state match.
Yeah. The 401ks, right? You want to. Yeah.
But not every year the state matches 100%. So like I said earlier, they sent us notification of that. For the towns that having 3%, like that, charging max. The first payment is going to be 35% of the anticipated revenue that's going to generate. And then there'll be a second allotment of funds from the state. If you only have 1 or 2%, that's the only percent you're gonna get. You don't get to go back to the table.
Do we know what that second allotment is?
No, because it's yet to be determined on how much state breaks in from.
So I guess how much is the CPA revenue expectation here based off of? So I have the summary of funding and expenditure recommendation from FY 23. CPA budgeted reserve, CPA historic, open space, affordable housing, admin, and fund balance.
There's a percentage. I can't lie. I don't know. It's like.
Right, if you add up all those percentages, you can tell you.
Yeah,
That'll tell
total,
us what the bag of money is.
total community preservation funds is 3.3 million.
So 35% of that.
They can take for certain pieces.
35% of that anticipated revenue, CPA, is 35% of that million, if it's something you can talk about. The town's going to get a check from the state. 35%. What's 35%? Well, 50% would be 100.
Yeah.
On 1.5.
Yeah. Yes, for 33%.
25 would be 750.
And typically Ann comes and presents.
Yeah.
We typically do this, you come and talk to us about the CPA.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think
She didn't.
She didn't come to did she come to the select board?
She did.
She did.
Yeah.
I might have missed out.
Yeah, if she didn't, she actually was here last week. So.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't. She did as well.
So, again, some people didn't like the idea of adding that 3% on. But the reality of it is, it's a good thing.
Gotten a lot done.
Especially with the historical buildings we have in town. Had we had all new buildings.
We bought plenty of open space. And again, it's a town thing, so naturally, that person might not agree with spending X amount of dollars on open space. That person might not agree, but the fact remains is that didn't come out of the operating budget.
And then in the state case, a ton of that.
And it's what the people want. People vote. If somebody comes up with an idea that says, oh, well, I like the land on the hill. The old apple farm. The town voted to spend that money on it because we wanted that open space and maybe future municipal use. 25 years later,
So, no,
it's sitting.
still waiting for future municipal use, so.
Well, we can do by the budget line for repairs. We're on our way.
That, I mean, we could open up a whole room, but
Since you're here, Mike, I just have a quick question.
So-
It's gonna be quick. And this,
No, I was late. I saw Mike's down together. I just want to let, we're still in meeting. so.
yeah. So I live right next to the Visco Springfield.
Oh, yes.
Now, that building originally was bought by the developer.
Yeah.
He offered it to the town free.
Yeah.
As long as they had a use for it. Been sitting there now, for instance, that proposal, I think it's going on 7 years. So I'm just curious, is there any, because he tear it down, it's a historical building, clear. Chuck the trailer side, the aluminum part down, he has houses going down. It's actually a house lot. Rex loves the building. It's how rocky, so, but that's, anyways, the fact is that, do you know if, you don't know, because that's been sitting there now for 7 years. He specifically said the town can have, it was one of his things because he went through the process of redoing that whole development. And he said, you can have it, but he wanted to use just because he didn't want it to sit there.
Yeah, I think there was, we looked at that lot for both kind of a municipal well, that was one kind of,
yeah, right, that was tossed around. a few
Correct, because that's right.
that was one look. And then I think, there was also kind of, taking the building, there was question around EPA, and how it was used for, take the building on, keep it prepared, about what needed. And then we have buildings here that we don't know,
Yeah,
if we're using it, library over here, police, and there was all those, I remember the discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know where it netted out.
So I tore it to purchase. So I know that was only like 3 years ago. That was before he tore the structure down, just before that.
So he purchased it, I think it's, was it 16 or 17? So we purchased it actually even before that. And
Well, he purchased it, I think, after he purchased the land, because that cut that we talked about last time. Change.
Right.
So that was a result of purchasing that access to.
I mean, if you look at the subdivision that he, there is actually a house lot right there. Where that building was. That means he can tear it down.
I'm not sure.
I like to second Mike's motion to adjourn.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye. Don't forget to stop recording.
You go,
Something, guys, I'd like to do.
you go.
I don't know, if it's something that, guys. Just real quick.
It's still recording.
Oh,
The site's actually going on.
we hit leave.
He's
thank you.
going, he's still going.